Hey y'all, it's your girl Kia Love. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. So as promised, today I am showing you how I make 3 chunky vegan soups. If you missed it a couple of weeks ago, I dropped 3 creamy vegan soups, and I promised that I would come back with chunky soup. So here we go, y'all. You do not want to miss it. Let me tell you, you do not want to miss these soups. These are everything, y'all. I completely winged it, but I was absolutely proud of how they turned out. So if lentil stew, Zuppa Toscana, or seafood chowder sounds good to you, this is the video for you. I'm not gonna hold you up. Let's go ahead and get to it. So the first thing I'm gonna start off with is the lentil stew. So I took about a 1/3 cup of quinoa, rinsed it off, and then placed it in some boiling water with a little bit of sea salt, and I'm just gonna cook that until it's tender. And then I'm going to grab about 3/4 a cup to 1 cup of green lentils. I am rinsing those off as well, and I will place those in boiling water and cook those until they are tender. So it's been about 15 to 20 minutes and the quinoa and lentils are done. You just want to cook the quinoa until it is fork tender, and the green lentils you want to cook until they are almost fork tender, because we are going to continue to cook them a little later on in the pan with a lot of the other ingredients and flavors. So those both are done. I'm going to take them off the heat, and then we're going to move on to the butternut squash. So here I have a convenient bag of butternut squash. I'm just going to roast this in the oven. I'm not going to season it. I'm not going to put anything on it because I'm going to get a lot of my flavoring from later on when I place them all in the pan pot together. But I just want to roast it. If you're in a time crunch, you can steam it, but roasting it will definitely bring out a depth of flavor that I'm looking for. So I'm going to roast it in the oven on 425 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. So next, grab an onion. I have a sweet onion here, but you can also use yellow. And I'm just gonna rough chop it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then we're gonna chop up a few garlic cloves. In a heated pan, you're going to place about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I am using a lot more than I usually do, but that's because I want to have a little bit left over for later. But for now, I'm just going to focus on sauteing the onion. So place your onion in a pan and saute it until it is soft. So it's been about 5 minutes and the onions are softened. This is good. So now we're going to throw in our garlic. We definitely don't want the garlic to burn, so we're just going to saute for a couple of minutes. So while that's sauteing, we're going to focus on our veggies. I have 3 celery stalks here. I am going to chop these up a little smaller than I did the onion. Next, I have a few jalapenos that I saved and froze from earlier in the year. And just for those who don't know, yes, the red ones are jalapenos. When jalapenos are fully ripe, they turn red, just FYI. Apparently, I didn't save the seeds in them, but if you want to include the seeds, you can. And you know I couldn't do this without the fresh herbs, y'all. So I grabbed some fresh basil and I just chopped this up. So the onions and the garlic are looking really good. So now we're going to go ahead and add the quinoa to the pan. And we're also going to add our lentils and an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. And then you are going to gently mix it. You want to make sure you be gentle because you do not want to mash the lentils. Next, I added some veggie stock. You can use veggie broth if you prefer. I do eyeball it, but I would estimate that I used about 1 cup of veggie stock. You can always add more later. So my bad, y'all. I forgot to hit record when I took out the butternut squash, but the butternut squash is done. So now we are going to make a paste. I took about 1 to 2 tablespoons of the butternut squash, a little bit of the basil and the chopped celery, and we're going to make a thick paste for the soup. It's going to serve as a natural thickener, and it's also going to get some of those flavors moving. So I did not want to add any water, but unfortunately I was fighting with my blender, so I had to add a little bit of water. But you do want it to be as thick as possible because like I said, we're going to treat it as a paste and you will see the end result when I throw it in the pan because I forgot to show that. But let's go ahead and season up this stew, y'all. So we're going to add a little bit of garlic, or more like a lot of it, of course. And then I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning salt. I was going back and forth about whether I should add this adobo, y'all, but I just decided to go ahead and just add it. I was like, let's just do it. So some adobo seasoning. Then I decided to add some Montreal chicken seasoning, followed by a little bit of black pepper and some chipotle chili powder. This is going to add a little bit of boldness and a kick to it. And of course, one of my favorites, smoked paprika, chili powder, a little bit of basil, oregano, and last but not least, some dried rosemary. I know y'all listen. Y'all know I like to jazz my food up. But listen, if you don't have all of these seasonings, do not worry. Just use what you have. Go with the flow. You don't have to do this. I just like to jazz it up a bit, okay? And then I'm just going to give this a nice little mix. Now we're going to add in our fresh veggies, our chopped celery, our jalapenos, our fresh basil. And by the way, I do have this on simmer. You do want to have this on a nice low heat because you do not want to burn it or overcook it. We just want to gently simmer it. And then you want to gently give this a stir. And if you prefer, you can add a little bit of veggie stock. Like I said, we're just eyeballing it and it's perfectly up to your preference. And I know you thought your girl forgot about the paste, but y'all, I didn't. So now we're going to take our paste that we made earlier and toss that in there. This again is going to serve as a nice natural thickener. It's also going to add a pop of flavor. And then we're going to add in our butternut squash. So we're going to gently mix that in, and then I'm going to cover it with the top and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. I wanted to give that paste time to let all of the flavors just settle in there. So we're going to go ahead, let it simmer for 10 minutes. So it's been 10 minutes. Let's check it out. And y'all, this is looking so good. Look at how thick and luscious this is looking. A nice, delicious, a warm pot of stew. But we're not finished yet, so let's go ahead and pop it in a bowl and let's move on to my last and final step. So you may have already guessed it. If you did, drop it in the comments below. But you already know I had to add some fresh avocado. This is going to be a nice creamy addition to this thick, luscious stew. And boom, there you have it. A nice, delicious, thick and hearty lentil stew topped with some fresh avocado. Y'all, this was banging. On to the next one. So this one is for my Olive Garden fans. I don't know about y'all, but I used to love the Zuppa Toscana soup at Olive Garden. So I had to try to come up with a vegan version. For the sausage, I am going to use a Beyond Meat sausage. It is the hot Italian sausage. I have not had this before, but I figured it would be a great addition to this soup. So I decided to wrap them up individually, pop them into the oven on 375 degrees, and I just checked them around 15 minutes. Next, I grabbed a few red potatoes, and we're going to chop these up. They don't have to be perfect, just do a quick rough chop. If you prefer to peel the skins, feel free to do so, but I am a keep the skin on kind of girl when it comes to potatoes. What about y'all? Are you a skin on or skin off with the potatoes? Let me know, drop it in the comments below. Next, we're going to steam the potatoes. For those who don't know, that's just adding some water to the bottom of a pot and placing them in a steam basket. I personally prefer steaming vegetables over boiling because I feel like they lose their nutrients when you boil them. So we're going to steam them for about 15 minutes until they are fork tender. And then next, I'm going to clean the kale greens. I grabbed a large bowl, dumped the kale in there, filled it up with some warm water, and added a little bit of apple cider vinegar.
Now and eternally. In Jesus' name. Somebody shout glory.
Now I'm just removing the thick stems. I do not like to keep the thick stems on the kale because they're not as easily digestible. And then also it just makes the kale easier to eat. Next, you're going to grab a couple of garlic cloves and chop those up. And then you're going to grab a yellow or sweet onion. Here I have a sweet onion and I just used half of a half, so about a fourth of an onion, just depending on the size of your onion. Next, you're going to add a little bit of olive oil to a heated pan. I was actually running low on my olive oil, so I'm just clearing the bottle out, but just add a little bit, enough to saute your onions. So our Italian sausage is done. It's time to take it out the oven. I did end up cooking it for 25 minutes because I didn't think 15 minutes was enough. As you know, I get paranoid when it comes to things like this being cooked all the way through. But this is what it looks like. And it does have the outer sausage layer skin or whatever you call it. It was already peeling, so I just peeled some of it off. And then I'm just going to chop it up. This is what the inside looks like. Looks just like a regular sausage. I'll go ahead and give you another view of the inside of the sausage. Boom, looks just like a regular sausage. And I decided I wanted to go ahead and just maximize my sausage, meaning just cut it up a little smaller and make it feel like I cooked more sausage than I did. So I decided to chop it up a little smaller. So it's been about 15 or 20 minutes since we steamed the potatoes. So I'm just checking on them, but I can pretty much look at them and tell that they're done. But just for your benefit, I'm just showing you this. See how fork tender they are? Your fork should just go right through them. So just checking on those onions and they look good. They are nice and sauteed. So now we're going to throw in the garlic. Like I said earlier, garlic does burn easily. So we just want to saute it for a couple of minutes. was so into that word, y'all. Sunday service. But anyways, y'all, the sausage was not brown enough for me. I just wanted to have a little char on it. So I decided to pop it in a pan with a little nonstick spray. And I'm just going to char it up just a little bit. Okay. This is more like it. This is what I was looking for, y'all. Look at how nice and greasy and charred that looks. I mean, it could be a little more charred, but this is looking a whole lot better. This is what I want my sausage to look like. So now you're going to take your sausage and throw it in the pot with the onions and the garlic. Grab your potatoes. We're going to throw those in there as well. And then you're going to grab your kale and you're going to throw that in there as well. Now, I wish I wouldn't have dumped the kale in there first. I wish I would have just did the veggie stock because now you're going to add your veggie stock. And of course, we have to eyeball it. So I wasn't thinking, y'all, but put your veggie broth in there first and then decide how much kale you want. Because honestly, I know the kale is going to cook all the way down, but I put a little too much. And then you're going to add a can of coconut milk. So now we're going to season it up. I'm just adding a little bit of pink salt, pink Himalayan sea salt, a little bit of chili powder, a little bit of smoked paprika, of course. And you already knew what was next, the garlic powder, followed by a little bit of onion powder. And for the color, I decided to add a little bit of turmeric powder. Next, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of oregano. So you already know what's next, y'all. Go ahead and guess. Some basil. And last but not least, some red pepper flakes. So gently fold that in. You want to be gentle because you do not want to mash your potatoes. And then we're going to cover it with a lid. We want to cook this kale down. So we're going to cook it on low heat for about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's been about 12 minutes and the kale has cooked down, y'all, and it's looking so delicious. Now I can see this broth and it's looking good. Like I said, you don't have to add this much kale, but I did want a lot of kale, but I didn't know it was going to be like a lot. Now it's time for the taste test to see if I need to add any more seasonings. And yeah, I do need to add some more. So I decided to add this sofrito blend. It's an Italian blend that I bought from Trader Joe's. I do have some in this little container, so I'm not going to open up my new bottle. I'm just going to throw some of that in there. And then I decided to add a little bit of my vegan parm. If you haven't checked out that recipe, I'll place it in the link in the description box below. It literally only takes like 3 minutes and it's really good. If you don't have that, you could just use the nutritional yeast. And then I decided to add a little bit of coconut aminos. So it needed a little more salt, so I decided to use the black sea salt this time to take it up a notch. And then for a little acidity, I decided to add some lemon juice. So y'all, don't judge me, but for some reason, I feel like this needed a little bit of ground nutmeg, so I threw a little bit in there. And it also needed a little bit of sugar. Now it's time to do the final taste test. And all was good, y'all. Oh, this soup looks so good. I get so excited thinking about it, man. I used to love zuppa toscana. It's so creamy, it's so chunky, it's so filling and warming, y'all. But let's go ahead and plate it. And I just topped it off with a little bit of crushed red pepper. Oh, let me tell you, this soup was so satisfying. Y'all definitely want to give this a try if you are a Zuppa Toscana fan. It was hitting. All I needed was some breadsticks to soak it all up, y'all, but it was on point. And last but certainly not least is the seafood chowder. Y'all, this is the one I'm the most proud of because I really had to put my creative hat on for this, y'all. And the way it turned out, you are not going to be disappointed. So, all right, let's get to it. So, the first thing you're going to need is one 20-ounce can of young green jackfruit. Here I am soaking it. If you want to see that full process, check out my Philly cheesesteak video or my pulled pork video. But it's key to soak it. I soak it for 30 minutes in 10-minute increments in fresh water each time. Squeeze it all the way out until it's completely dry like this and it looks like shredded chicken. But in this case, for this recipe, we are going to treat it as our crab meat. You already know the first seasoning we need to hit it with is some Old Bay. You cannot have no seafood type of dish without the Old Bay seasoning, okay? And then we're going to hit it with a little bit of smoked paprika. So now we're just going to mix that up. We're not going to do too much with the seasoning because we're really going to soup it up when we get it into the pot. But for right now, that's all we're going to do. And we're going to pop this baby in the oven so we can get it nice and a little bit of crispy. So grab your parchment paper and your cookie sheet, spread it out as best as you can. And then we're going to pop it in the oven and cook it on 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. So now that that's in the oven, we're going to go ahead and chop up some veggies. So I have a little bit of a sweet onion here. I'm going to chop this up. And then we're going to grab about 2 to 3 gold potatoes. They may also be called yellow potatoes in your area. Like I said, if you want to peel the skins, feel free to do so. But I am a keep the skins on the potatoes type of girl. Drop it in the comments below. Which one are you? Are you a keep the skins on or peel them? Also, I didn't want the potatoes to be as chunky as they were in the Zuppa Toscana, so I just chopped them up a little smaller this time. Next, I chopped up some celery and carrots. I did lose the footage of me chopping up the carrots, but they were whole carrots, so I peeled the skin and chopped them up. And the celery sticks I used too as well. So the 20 minutes are up. The jackfruit is done. As you can see, it's nice and crispy now. Don't worry, it's still soft, but it has a nice crisp to it that is just perfect. I just love it. So now in a heated pot, we're going to add a little bit of coconut oil. Here I have some unrefined virgin coconut oil. Throw your onions in the pot. We're going to saute those up. And once they are done, they should look a little like this. A little bit of brownness to them. That helps bring out the sweetness, which is going to be great with this recipe. But I just love to saute onions anyway, y'all. So next, you're going to add the veggie broth or veggie stock, whichever one you prefer. Like I said, I eyeball it. So I would start with maybe a cup, and then you can always add more later. Throw in your potatoes, your carrots, and I'm just adding a little more veggie broth because I'm going to be cooking the potatoes and the carrots and I wanted to make sure there was enough liquid. Then I'm just going to cover it, turn it on boil for like 15 minutes and then I'm going to check it. And once it's fork tender, just like this, the potatoes and the carrots, so let me show you the potatoes, then it's done. All right, so now it's time for our next main seafood ingredient, y'all. Pearl oyster mushrooms, one of my favorite mushrooms. I am so excited to use this in this recipe. And guess what? What do you think I'm going to be using this for? Just take a guess. That's right, we're going to be using it as our oyster in the seafood chowder. So wash your mushrooms, dry them off completely, and then we're going to chop those babies up. So I'm cutting around the thick stem. I'm putting that to the side because I'm not going to use it. And then I'm just going to chop these babies up. Grab your heated pan and put a little bit of olive oil. I didn't want too much olive oil, so I decided to use my Mr. Spray this time. So we are going to saute these babies up like it's stir fry. Throw your oyster mushrooms in there and we're going to saute them up until they get a nice little char. We're going to season them up a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of thyme, a little bit of ground mustard, and of course, some coconut aminos. Y'all, this coconut aminos and the texture of these mushrooms are gonna be, ooh, perfect for this oyster. It's gonna be nice and chewy and meaty and have a nice umami flavor. I'm so excited about these. These mushrooms are done. They are looking good. They have a nice char to them and the texture is perfect. Man, I wish I would have used more of these, but hey, I know for next time. All right, so next I decided I want to put some corn into this chowder. So I'm just going to put some corn as much as I want into this bowl. That's what's going to go into our chowder. And then next for our last seafood ingredient, we have hearts of palm. Y'all, these hearts of palm are going to play as our scallops. So yes, this hearts of palm, if you haven't had this before, it has a nice, soft, light texture. I think it's going to be great for scallops. So I'm just going to cut them into the size that I want. And y'all, so yeah, I'm excited. Let's go. All right, y'all, it's time to put it all together. So go ahead, dump your celery in the pot. Dump your scallops in the pot. I'm just gonna put a few. And then go ahead and dump your corn into the pot. And don't forget about that good old crab. And of course, our oysters. Go ahead and dump those babies in there. And y'all, for the creaminess, we are going to use coconut cream. It is thicker than coconut milk, but trust me on this. So go ahead, save some of the cream that's at the top of the can for a little later, but dump the rest of that bad boy in there. Now it's time to jazz it up. So grab some coconut aminos. A little bit of seasoning salt. Ground mustard. Some garlic powder. Onion powder. Smoked paprika. Some Old Bay, of course. It wouldn't be seafood chowder without the Old Bay. A little nutritional yeast. This is going to help give it a little undertone of cheesiness, a little undertone, a little depth that I'm looking for. And of course, we have to add some acidity. So I'm going to add some white wine vinegar. This one is a must, y'all. We want to get that seafood flavor, so you need some seaweed flakes. I am using nori, so go ahead and add your seaweed flakes. I'm also going to add a little bit of dill. I think that's going to be a nice pop of herbiness to the seafood chowder. And some crushed red pepper for a little kick. And a little bit of black pepper. Now go ahead and give that a good mix. So we want these flavors to mix and mingle and get to know each other a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and place the lid on the pot and let it simmer on low heat for about 10 minutes just to give it a chance to do a little something something. So after the 10 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and give it a taste test. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, and I want it to have a little more of a sea taste, so I'm going to add some more seaweed flakes. I'm also going to add a little more dill. And for a little more acidity, I'm going to add some lemon juice. This is going to give me the little pop that I'm looking for. It's going to lighten it up a bit. But I'm also going to add the zest of the lemon. I love adding the zest of citrus fruits because it definitely gives that pow, that flavor, that depth of lemonness that I'm looking for. Go ahead and stir that up a little bit. Look at all this good chunkiness, y'all. I don't think y'all see this. Look at this. Look at this. You are going to get a mouthful with this. Look at that. Look at all that goodness in there. So I decided this will be a great time to use the immersion blender, y'all. So we're going to take our hand blender / immersion blender and just blend up just a little bit of the soup. You don't want it all blended, but this is going to increase the thickness. It's also going to give it a nice chunky texture. It's going to add some texture to this chunkiness. I don't even know how to describe it, but this is going to be so good. So I'm going to add a little more nutritional yeast. Like I said, this is going to give it a nice cheesy undertone, but it's not going to be cheesy. And then I'm going to hit it with some fresh herbs. So here I have some fresh parsley. I'm going to give this a quick stir and just then put the lid back on and let the flavors mingle and the new textures just settle together for a few more minutes on medium-low heat. Ooh, look, that heat is going now. The heat is going now. Let's check it out. Ooh, look at this, y'all. Look at how thick and creamy and luscious this texture is. Looking nice and chattery. So to add a little more heat, I'm going to throw in some cayenne pepper, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And then to add a little silkiness and butteriness, I'm going to add a little bit of vegan butter. If you haven't checked out my vegan butter recipe, the link is in the description box below. Ooh, y'all can't tell me this don't look good. Look at this. This is seafood chowder for you. Nice and creamy in those textures and all those little, So remember that coconut cream that we saved? I'm going to place that right there on top. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some crispy fried onions. And I'm also going to add some fresh dill. And last but not least, I'm going to serve it up with some crispy water crackers, y'all, to scoop that good chunkiness up. Y'all, this seafood chowder was everything. These textures, these textures were perfect, baby. Let me tell you, I hope you don't miss out. Don't miss out, okay? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed these recipes. If you did, hit that like button. If you want to be notified whenever I post, hit the bell icon and subscribe button. If you want to connect with me, you can also follow me on Instagram. It's your girl, Kia Love. Until next time, y'all, peace and love.